Well, the Phillies finished the first half of the season 62 wins, best in baseball, but they ended it with a stinker. We're going to get some insight now on the All-Star game, what is happening with this Phillies team moving forward, the National League, and more as we take a look at, by the way, the All-Star Game Home Run Derby you can listen to right here tonight on 97.3 ESPN. Jim Duquette is the former GM of the Mets. You can hear him on Power Alley weekdays from 10 to 1 on Sirius XM's MLB Network Radio. Tomorrow he'll be hosting Sirius XM's All-Star pregame programming live from Globe Life Field in Arlington, Texas, and he joins us now on the Sports Bash live on 97.3 ESPN. Jim, welcome aboard, man. How you doing?
Hey, Mike, what's happening? Everything is good here from Texas, getting ready to watch some of the Derby tonight. You going to get a chance to watch it?
Yeah, looking forward to seeing Alec Boehm, not thought of to be a big home run hitter, but like Bobby Abreu a couple of years ago I guess it was 05, not a couple of years ago, but he was not a home run hitter, but he got grooving and hit a bunch out there at Comerica. I think Boehm could be similar.
Yeah, I do too. He's somewhat local. I think he works out in Houston, and he'll have some family, a lot of fans and family here too. Phillies always travel well, so yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing him. There's some guys, Alonso is always good in this event. Bobby Witt's a local kid. There'll be a lot of fans, I think, supporting him. So, and I like they made a couple of tweaks to the Derby, kind of streamline it a little bit, and I like that. I don't think it's going to drag. Sometimes it can drag, and so I think they've tightened that up a little bit too.
Yeah, Gunnar Henderson, a lot of young flair out there. Is that kind of the theme, Jim, of this All-Star weekend or this All-Star game this year? Is how many young players have kind of infiltrated this game?
You know what? It is a theme. I think there's 25 or it might be even more first timers. There's 4 rookies that are All-Stars. Including the starter for the National League and Paul Skeens, who's obviously come on the scene really fast. Obviously, how good the Phillies have been. I mean but I think it is the youth's taken over the sport. If you're in your from age 24 to 28 or 9, that's almost a prime age these days for guys in their peak years. Some guys are able to extend it into to early 30s, but. I think that is a common theme, I think, throughout this is how young the rosters for both teams are.
Jim, you mentioned how young, and the Phillies have 8 All-Stars out there. Some young, some old, some kind of came out of right field. Guy like Ranger Suarez, Christopher Sanchez, Matt Strum, Jeff Hoffman, who had been, left for dead, and here they are in the All-Star game. Are the Phillies and the 8 All-Stars, has that been the story of the first half for you, or are you looking around baseball and saying they're just one of many big stories?
Well, no. I think the Phillies, by far, right? Not just the All-Stars, but the number of wins, the lead that they have. There are some leads, and we've seen it, and you have too, I'm sure, Mike, in the National League East, you see some leads evaporate, right? There's the famous ones, Mets 7 up with 17 to play. We saw the Mets lose out to the Braves a couple of years ago. I think that, this lead that the Phillies have now, while you never will sit there and call it for sure, but this one feels like it's different in terms of the number of games that they are ahead of Atlanta, that you feel pretty comfortable just because of how well built and how well rounded the Phillies team is.
Jim Duquette, MLB, Sirius XM Radio. All right, I got to ask you this. As a guy who was a GM in this league, the Phillies obviously kicking around looking for outfield help, maybe some bullpen help. If you're the A's and you were just in town this weekend, what's those calls like when you have a guy like Rooker doing what he did and that team's interested? Does that change the ask? I mean, take our listeners a little bit into how those calls happen when the two teams who might be having trade talks play and that guy excels to the level that he did.
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're Oakland, and you have this player, this really good player who's had a really good season. It started slow, and he's been on fire lately. He's a big power guy, and you have him under control for several more years. Probably should have been in the All-Star game. He was their All-Star last year. And the power bat, it's hard to find. There's not a lot of offensive players that are out there and available. Like that, it already comes at a premium. And if you're Philly, the hard part, for them is like they don't need them. Would they like them? Yeah. But you could find a complementary piece that would fit in just as fine too. So that's the hard part. Dave, a lot of people have kind of said, Dave Dombrowski's only going to, just add on to the roster in smaller pieces. I wouldn't ever assume that with Dave. Dave's going to be a Hall of Fame general manager. I've known him for 25 years, and he's one of the best out there at finding, the right fit. And if he has to spend the extra assets in prospect capital, he'll go do that. So Rooker would be a guy, you hear him, you hear, Luis Robert. I don't think Luis Robert's going to get moved, and I don't think that's as good of a fit there. But, if you're Oakland, you have to wait for, a top guy, one of their top hit, like a painter. It would hurt, and it would be painful from a prospect side of things. So that's why I think it's hard for the Phillies to do it.
Yeah, I mean, is Rooker, he's 29, controlled. Is he worth giving up a Miller, a Painter, or a Crawford? Or are you saying that's just too much of an ask?
Don't do it. Don't do it. I wouldn't do it. It would be one thing if, we always talk about, all right, well, are you one player away from getting to the World Series, right? And so if the answer to that is yes, you would consider moving maybe one of those guys. But this is already a good and likely, World Series type of team without Brent Rooker. They don't need him unless they had an injury between now and July 30th, because you can't, as you can't improve your team anymore, in August with these waiver trades that you used to be able to do when I was in the front office. So, I think that, you look at what they had, obviously they had to release Merrifield, if they found a veteran, to kind of replace him and the versatility there. I think you do something like that. Maybe it's a platoon type situation in the outfield, but I don't think they need to go all in and give up, a huge piece of their future for Rooker, because they're a pretty well-built team as it is.
Jim Duquette, SiriusXM MLB Network Radio, Power Alley 10-1. They'll be out at the All-Star Game. They're at the All-Star Game, and they'll be previewing all the festivities there. You got Mason Miller, 104, 4 pitches in a row the other day, just dominated, closing. Is he a guy you would be willing to give up one of those 3 prospects for?
Well, I think that, you're in the right the right quality to get him. It would require that for sure. There's been a lot of speculation about Mason Miller. The only reason why, if I'm Oakland, I would trade Mason Miller is you are concerned about his long-term health. He's had some health issues. He's overcome diabetes, which is a great story. But, he had some arm issues when he was trying to figure it out as a starter, so they put him in the bullpen. But if I'm Oakland, he still has his rookie status. If he ends up being Rookie of the Year this year, they get a draft pick, with the new rules that have been changed. We saw the Orioles get a draft pick this year for Gunnar Henderson being a Rookie of the Year last year. Same thing with Arizona for Corbin Carroll. So Oakland is sitting there looking at potentially another, that pick was, I think, 31 or 32 this year. That's a really valuable pick. I don't think Oakland can afford to trade him. So, in my mind, I don't think they're going to move him, even though other people do. I think it's more likely they would trade a Rooker, or they have I don't know if Lucas Bursick had pitched in that series much, but that guy has an electric arm. He's a 7th and 8th inning guy. It wouldn't cost you as much, but he's a really quality arm, too, that I would consider getting.
Jim, 15 days before the deadline, which team are you keeping the closest eye on that needs to do something?
Boy, I'd say there are a couple of those, but, if I were choosing one, I honestly, I feel like the Dodgers, this team is almost a house of cards. As much as good as their record looks, their rotation is in shambles like it was last year. And their president of baseball operations, Andrew Friedman's also aggressive. He's not as aggressive as Dave Dombrowski, but he usually trades for impact. There's not a lot of starting pitching impact out there, but I would keep an eye on Garrett Crochet, the White Sox top starter, in a potential trade for with the Dodgers, because they really need some stability in that in that rotation. They don't, Kershaw's supposed to come back on a rehab assignment here soon, but I don't know what to expect there. And they got a ton of guys on the injury list. So I'm looking at the Dodgers as one of those that I would keep an eye on because, I think they'll win the division easily, but I don't think they can have any type of run in the postseason. And I don't think they would be a threat to the Phillies if they don't go out and get a starting pitcher. So if they do, watch the Dodgers in the Phillies, in the NL, somewhere in the NL there in the postseason.
So, Jim, knowing Dave Dombrowski as well as you do, what is he looking for right now?
I mean, I think corner outfield, right? I'll give you a name that has popped up recently, like a Mark Canha with Detroit, right? It's not a overall sexy name, but he would fit perfectly there. He has a great idea of the strike zone. Can play multiple outfield positions. He could play left. Outside, he could play a little bit of center field. He could also play right if you need him to. The right-handed bat, but he hits righties. Like that type of guy. And we're still trying to flesh out the rest of the market because of, there's so many teams still in the wild card mix in the National League. So there'll be another outfielder out there maybe available, but he's one guy that I think would be a really good fit and wouldn't be surprised if they're in on him.
The whole league seems to be in the mix, right? Except for like 4 teams. Yeah. It's unbelievable. And what that does for guys that are doing your job that you had for such a long time, Jim, trying to make trades. I guess it's so hard to determine whether you're in it or not.
It really is. And I mean, you got normal years. You're 4 or 5 games under 500 at this time of the year. You're selling. Like you're not buying. You're not a postseason. Like I have a hard time talking about postseason teams when you're 4 or 5 games under 500. But right now, in the wild card, they put you 3 games out. You're a 4-game win streak from being in the postseason mix. I mean, the Mets just went on a huge run. They're 3 over 500 right now, I believe, and they're the third. They have the 3rd wild card spot if the season ended today. So it's. And I think everybody points to the Phillies from 2 years ago, the Diamondbacks last year, 86 wins was it, Phillies, right?
Yep.
In 23 or 22, and in 23 was 84 wins for the Diamondbacks. So everyone's going, oh well, I just gotta hit that number. That'll put me in the mix. So you're certainly not trading or selling in that, and I think that it's good for baseball, it's good for fan bases, but. I'm a junkie when it comes to the trade deadline. I want to see more trade. It's killing the trade deadline.
Well, Jim, hey, man, we appreciate it. Home Run Derby tonight. Former MLGM Jim Duquette. Power Alley, weekdays from 10 to 1 on Sirius XM Major League Baseball Radio. And, of course, tomorrow, Sirius XM's coverage of the All-Star pregame programming will be live from Globe Life Field. It's basically like a Phillies pregame show tomorrow. The Phillies, 8 All-Stars against the American League. Should be a lot of fun. Jim, we appreciate a couple minutes, man.
All right, Mike. Appreciate you having me on. Talk to you later.
Absolutely. Former Mets GM Jim Duquette, now with MLB Radio, and he joined us here on the Sports Bash live from Globe Life Field in Arlington, Texas.